Welcome to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. What's your train wreck? Everyone has one. The question is, are you going to live there or are you just visiting? Let's check in with Mary Fran and Kristen to learn how to come through not broken, but brilliant.
Hey everyone, before we dive into this week's episode, we have a resource that we wanted to tell you about.
Transform every week of yours with our Brilliance Bit that will deliver right to your email inbox. Sign up for it at brilliantlyresilient.net and keep living brilliantly resilient.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient. I'm Kristen Smedley here with my buddy Mary Fran Von Tempo, and we are playing Philadelphia, New Jersey geography with our guest today, Lynn Cummings. She's from just across the river over in New Jersey. We have mutual friends, and what I'm learning is some mutual values and mindsets that have guided our lives, which I know is why we're going to have such a great conversation today too. If I was to intro everything that Lynn has done in her years here on this planet, we would be here for 3 hours for the episode because it is so much. But some of the things that are the incredible highlights are working on an accessible playground. That is something that I absolutely love. And we finally have one the way it should be over here in Bucks County, and a slew of other, nonprofits, a documentary made about your missions, like so many good things. I cannot wait to dive into all of this today. So Lynn, thanks so much for being here with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm honored and humbled.
So here's my big question for you. I'm looking at your bio, and as we're all, chit-chatting about the different things that you've done, where does all of this, you are just like servant leader. You look up in the dictionary, servant leader, and there's your picture, Lynn. Where does all this come from? Were you always like this? Did something happen where there was a tipping point and you decided that you were just going to serve the world? Where did all of it start?
Well, I wasn't expecting that question. I really had wonderful parents. And my father was a labor union president. And my father was raised in an orphanage. And my mother was one of 11. And my father was the go-getter. My mother was the person who, she was the one who always said, well, did you do your best? Well, if you did your best, then that's all you could do. My father was the person who said, if you got a 95, you could definitely get 100. So I had a good balance in that regard in my family. And I was one of only two, and my brother was 11 years older. So I was raised like an only child and was with adults a lot. And I had a lot of good influences because of, I believe, those early years with my family. My father was not Catholic, my mother was. So I was raised Catholic, and I believe that sense of giving back was always a part of my education, but never as much as when I got to high school. And even the alma mater we sang was to always make things better than you found them. So I feel like I have been guided and mentored by others that just believed that way, and so therefore you did it. But I used to push my mother over the edge because there was something innate within me that if I saw somebody walking and carrying bags, I wanted to stop and pick them up. And I traveled with my mother a lot because my mother was 41 years older than I, so she was much older than I through the years then when I was working the most. So I brought her with me, and I would make her a nervous wreck, and she'd beg me not to pick this person up. So it was really a pull and a tug of what I felt like I should do and what I would wind up then acquiescing to her. And that was that piece is true even with all the adoptions, So thanks for the question. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
So let's talk about that. You have 3 adopted kids. Do you have just the 3 kids?
Yes.
Okay, so 3 adopted kids, and all 3 of them had very challenging casts before you came into the picture. So
Well, no, only one. Only one
okay.
had, only one had a challenging past before we adopted him,
Okay.
but not so much the daughters.
Okay, so you adopted 3 kids, and you know, raising kids under the best of circumstances is not easy. But one of your kids, I know, had some particular challenges that I can relate to, and there was substance abuse there. And did you find during that, because I know it did with me, did that kind of influence you to also serve in that community? I mean, I feel like when we have really tough things happen, and I think Kristen agrees with this philosophy, one of the ways to make it mean something beyond your own pain and challenges is to go out and share information and to help other people. Was that one of the areas that you ventured into in terms of your service?
We actually, and I say we because I can't say that I did any of this alone. You know, I'm married 55 years this year in March. So my husband and I are a partner in everything that I've done, everything. And I would say that it was really our first child that brought us to one of the first things we did. We were only 6 years married, and I was 26, and I had already 2 adopted children, and we made this thing called Marriage Encounter, and it was to change the world. You know, that we, together with other married couples, could bring marriage, family, and faith to the world, and love at the basis of that, and that in doing that, it would make a better place for when our children were adults themselves. So that was really, I think, the motivating force. And because of that, and we met so many wonderful couples, all of which were people that were movers and shakers, and they were about changing the world. I mean, nobody told us you couldn't, so we believed we could. And so that's how it started. And that network of people were amazing for us in dealing with the challenges that we had, because Keith's challenge, as far as had being born a heroin addict, and being so battered and abused, was not as difficult for my family to accept as adopting Kristen, who was multiracial. Well, she's not multiracial, she's biracial. She's half white, half black. That was really a challenge. So yes, to answer your question specifically, I've had some movement in the world, but I haven't really done that well yet. I feel like I've done better in the world for our white daughter and for our black daughter. And I don't think I've yet really tackled what has to be done in the world of addiction.
Well, that is a world that is full of challenges. And I think in terms of everything you've done, I don't think you should beat yourself up too much, because you got a lot of other good stuff that you did. You were talking about 2 nonprofits, 3 businesses, something called Neighbors Empowering People. I really want to get a little bit of a sense of the overall scope of your ventures into service, and what prompted them, and what developed from that.
So the first, of course, being that we were involved in Marriage Encounter, changing the world, led us to see how we were making a difference. And so there's nothing like success that breeds more success. And by success, I mean that people were loving and kind and talking and communicating and helping each other with their families, and sincerely helping each other. You know, I remember a time when my husband was out of work, and I have no idea who came into our home, but our home was, from the front door to the kitchen, had bags lined up of food. And I'd like to say that we were also a part of doing that for other people many, many times. So I think that the first 10 or 15 years of our life were really in that development. trying to bring love and the sense of faithfulness to your family, to the world. We even did love spots. They weren't necessarily commercials because they were public service announcements, and they were so much fun. And we were traveling out to California as volunteers. We were traveling out to California to make these love spots. So that was the basis that started, where we then were open and able, against family members trying to talk us out of it, to adopt Kristen. And when we adopted Kristen, she was the only Black child in our neighborhood. And in the early 90s, that changed drastically. And I can remember walking out to get the paper, which I did almost every morning. And I looked down the street, and our new African-American neighbors that had just moved in had a ring of sale signs around them. Oh. And it was such a moment of both exhilaration for me to think that the town I really wanted to live in had finally come to me, and then to see that the town people wanted to leave for that very reason. And so that was really the motivation for gathering people in our neighborhood. There was only 7 that came to my dining room table when I said, we want to live here, we want to stay here, and we want to make this work. How do you feel about this? And so 7 people came to my dining room table to say, yes, how can we do this? And that started what I call our kumbaya years. Like, let's just all get along together, right? And we did good things, but it wasn't making change. And in order to really make change, you really have to go to the power structures. And after 3-4 years of our kumbaya years, we really got serious with our town and with our churches and with our government and with our service communities. And we brought that table to a huge conference room where we began to work on this thing called, what no one really knew what it meant, but stable integration. And those were powerful years that made big change. I mean, if you could see my neighborhood, it's so beautiful. It's just unbelievable. We're a white family across the street from a white family. To our left is an African American. To our right is Vietnamese. Across the street are Mexican. Catty corner over here are Puerto Rican. Next to them are another family that are Vietnamese, and across from them are white. So it used to be a town that there were neighborhoods, but it was never a town that on one street you had all of that. And so the reason I say that I've had these opportunities and have, I think, put them into the priority of what my kids needed to have in this world. I have to always say that was always a part of it. So that our son Keith, he was always in special schools. There were other things that we were always working on, trying to get through the other problems of this addiction, of course, prison system being one of them. And my son has written a book. It hasn't been published or even self-published yet. And it really deals with and talks about what it was like for him as a child, having come from such an abusive situation, and then having to go to a special school away from our family, and what his journey is. And so that's why I say I haven't yet really done the work, because he's, after 15 years, he's coming out of prison this May.
Wow.
So I'm really hoping that we together, our whole family together, can work on getting this book published, because it's an important message, and it's his story. It's not my story. It's really his story. And it needs to be heard. It needs for people to understand. And the whole thing about adoption, there's this idea that people think that, you do a good thing by adopting kids. Well, if you don't adopt kids because you're really selfish, you're going to be very disappointed. the whole point of adopting children is that you want kids so bad. You're fulfilling your need, your destiny, right? If you think you're doing it for them, you are going to fall so short. So with that sense, there's always, we haven't done enough, right? It's always, there's more to be done. There's never enough time, but you only have the time you have. So you do the best you can. And that's always been, you know, we had a wonderful pastor who just passed away, and he just always said, just do your bit. Doesn't have to be a big thing, doesn't have to be a small thing. And I keep in front of me, taped on here, the words of Mother Teresa, which says, to show great love for God and our neighbor, we need not do great things. It is how much we put in the doing that makes our offering something beautiful for God. So we don't have to do big things. We just have to keep doing. We just have to keep trying.
You said a word in there, Lynn. Well, you said so many things that I want to be able to land on, but the word bit, and we actually have a brilliance bit that we send out every week that's a less than 1 minute just to reframe your mindset, right? But what I'm hearing is you did your bit by bit by bit, one step at a time. What is the next right step that you need to take? And from all the way back, I mean, the way that you described the neighborhood, coming to your 7 families coming to your kitchen table. What I love in there is that you aligned yourself with people with similar values. And instead of picking up and having to go someplace else, you made it work where you were. And there's so many things that align with my family having 2 kids with special needs. And I was going to have to pick up and go somewhere else. I'm like, no, this community can make this work. And I can imagine the blood, sweat, and tears that went on. But then you did bit by bit, and then realized to make the systemic change. Then you had to take a step in faith and fear with some serious courage to go to the powers to make it a big thing. But I think that's one of the most important things that we haven't really highlighted in our episodes here at Brilliant and Resilient, is that you take it bit by bit. And when you look back and see the progress, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's why I said, you know, if you tried to do it all in 20 years, you couldn't do it. But I've been doing it for a long time. I even feel like, you know, as a kid, gosh, I can remember I was a kid going to conventions with my parents, but instead of going on the women's trip with my mom, I went to the conference with my dad. So I learned then the plight of the worker and what unions could do for workers. And I was just 11 and 12 years old. So, you know, so the formation came at a really very early age for me.
And you know what I'm hearing from all of this, and this is so important, to piggyback on what you just said about it doesn't have to be a great thing. It also doesn't have to be a big cause necessarily. You just have to look at your life. What is going on in your life and in your world that you're feeling is just not the way it should be? Or that
well, you know, there's a perfect example of that. Our middle daughter, Kristen, who, by the way, actually is an actress and has done Broadway. So we've got all kinds of stories that come in and out of our family. You know, they're all part of the fabric, right? But when she was just 6 years old, probably not even 6, she was probably still 5, our grammar school was very close to our home. And so she was able to walk to school. And I was close behind, but I always let her walk by herself. Mm-hmm. And there was a little boy who threw rocks at her and called her names because she was Black. And in those days, she was really Black because we had a pool and the kids were in the pool all the time. So she got very dark. Mm-hmm. And so the next day I went and knocked on the door of that family. And I got to tell you, my heart was pounding out of my body because I didn't know what I was going to say. I had no idea where this was going to lead. And they opened the door and I said, "Hi, I'm one of your neighbors." And with that, I was welcomed in. I was welcomed in and I was asked to sit down, and I did. And I said, "I don't know how to start this other than to just tell you that your son threw rocks at my daughter yesterday, and I can't have that." It was a very difficult thing to knock on that door. But when I left, we had, I think, such a great exchange. I didn't change them. They didn't change me. All we did was say, this hurt this child. Can we just try and talk about this so it doesn't happen again? So it wasn't anything earth shattering, but it was a way to start communication, to allow each other to be in each other's shoes for a few minutes.
Can you imagine if people in this country alone right now would just say that? No blame, no shame, no nothing there other than this person is hurt, and how can we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Right. That's right. It's that, and I hate to make it sound simple, but it is that simple. It is that simple.
I think that's exactly the point. I think we complicate things and we put all the supposed logic and the reasons we think a certain way, and well, this happened to me and that's why. And at its most basic, we're all just humans, hopefully trying to do the best that we can. And if we recognize that in each other, that's the basis for any starting point of a conversation.
It is.
The simplicity is what makes it so beautiful, because anybody can do it at any time. And that's where we should all be starting. So, it's funny that you talked about the doing your bit, because that's exactly what I pulled out of your bio when I was reading it. And it's also, again, to reiterate what we were just saying, that idea of it's a bit, it's a little thing, but that's where all great things start. And it's a building process. And I think that you've done that over the years. You've built and continued with a process.
Can you see it?
I can't. What does it say?
Do your bit.
Is that a bracelet?
It's a bracelet, because our pastor was so well known for saying it. When he passed away this past November, one of our parishioners had these made for all of us.
Oh, it's perfect. I mean, if everybody would just do their bit to make the world a kinder place and to take care of other humans.
And it's so interesting, isn't it? Your bit can simply be just a smile. If years and years ago, in fact, I think that's why our knees got bad. My husband and I used to walk in the mall. He's asthmatic, so it was always a good place. It was the right temperature, and then there was no pollen. So we were the mall walkers, and you could get in real early in the morning. And he would say to me, how do you know these people? And I say, I don't know them. He said, well, how come they're all smiling and saying hello to you? I said, because I'm smiling at them. It's such a natural thing that people do, right? If you smile, people smile back.
And it's such an immediate, natural human connection.
It is.
You know what's funny? I was telling one of our good friends, Bob Berg, who is the Go Giver guy, right, that wrote the Go Giver. I was talking to him one time and I said, Bob, I don't know how we got onto the smiling thing. And he's like, oh, Kristen, you're always smiling. I said, I'm not always smiling. Some days I just have a rotten day. But the one day I was having I couldn't snap out of it this one morning. So I went to the Acme, the food store, and I had to pick up a few things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to smile at everybody. And I did. And people were like, what? And then people were by the time I left, I had met people. I was laughing, like this goofy thing that I did just to snap out of it. It was phenomenal.
I know it. One time I went out, believe this or not, I'm not proud of this story. I came outside and here I am looking at a pile of mulch that's been delivered, right? So how lucky am I? I have a home and I have a yard, and I actually had mulch delivered. It actually was the first time in my life I had mulch delivered, but there I am, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I got to move all this mulch myself. Darn it. How come I always have to do all this stuff by myself? And I got into this, I don't know, pity party or something. It was so ridiculous. And I took the shovel and I decided, wait a minute. I live in a house, I have a yard, and I have a pile of mulch. And I took the shovel and I thought of somebody and who that somebody might be in my life and what that somebody meant to me. And with that, I took the shovel and moved the mulch. And then thinking about that person made me think about this person, made me think about this person and this person and this person and this person and this person. And my life was so full with gratitude of all these incredible people in my life. I moved that mulch in record time.
I like that story.
That's a great story. And it just goes to show you that little adjustment in a mindset, people are always saying, and Kristen and I talk about this all the time. People are always telling you, change your mindset, but nobody tells you how to do that.
That's right. That's true.
It is that it's a simple thing to switch it. It's just the simplest thing to shift from feeling, put upon and beleaguered to, again, like you said, okay, why do I have this pile of mulch? Well, I have it because I could afford to live in this house and make my garden look nice,
Right.
And that simple shift gets you out of that pity party. And that's what people have to recognize. It's really about our perceptions and what we allow ourselves to think.
And Kristen, I want to say specifically to you that nothing has given us more joy. When our grandson died, and he was born with half a heart, and he was only 2.5 when he died. And when we said to our daughter, a family had given us $6,000, and that's another whole story how they got that $6,000, because they always gave money at the holiday time, because they were Christian and Jewish. They made donations in people's names as gifts to people. And so they gave us $6,000 and said, please do something in honor of Jake, our grandson's name. And I went to our daughter and I said, honey, the Tillies have given us $6,000 to do something in Jake's name. And she was so depressed. Her eyes were closed all the time. And she was across from me. And she said to me, Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, oh, I don't know either. I don't know. It could be a park bench, it could be a gymnasium, it could be a playground. She stood up and she looked at me and she said, could it be a boundless playground? I had not a clue what a boundless playground was, but there was nothing I would ever have said no to. If that's what she wanted, that's what we're going to do. I said, sure, let's do a boundless playground. I had no idea, because until you have a child with disabilities, until you have anything you didn't have before, you don't know what that world is like. You don't know what it's like for a family. My daughter, she would bring Jake to the playground that had nothing on it that he could do because he was so tiny because of the heart disease. And he took 13 medicines, so he couldn't be in the sun. And he had oxygen. And so she wanted something that would be better for other families. And those families are so 24/7 taking care of their kids. There's no way they could do this. That $6,000, it cost us over $700,000. That's what we raised to build the first playground. But it came from $20 bills. It didn't come from big, large amounts of money. It came from thousands of people giving little bits of money to make an extraordinary place for children and families that all they need a little bit in life is some joy. And when there's nothing like the smile you could see when you see a child. We had my husband goes to the playground all the time, just to fill his heart with these kind of meaningful stories. But he saw a young boy with his aide, and we have musical pieces on our equipment. And the aide started crying, and my husband went over to her and said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Oh, yes. Yes." She said, "I have been the aide of Johnny for 12 years. And this is the first time I've ever seen him smile."
Mm.
That's a long story to get back to your smile. But it's a human condition that some people don't have easily. And if we can have it and we can give it, we might be able to help them to have it too.
I'm hearing from you, Lynn, you've got this like through line that is just what's in your heart and everything you do, and that's including everybody. You are the epitome. Everyone in this world is talking about inclusion and what it is and what it is and what it is. It's exactly what you've been talking about, what your whole life has been, including people, being welcoming, making it such that anyone can come in and be included. And isn't that what we all want? To feel included in a community, in a family. And now I'm hearing that you're next. I know that you're saying in the beginning of this that you're this with your son coming out of prison, and how is this going to go, and get this book out. And it's like it's another bit by bit of including him and all the work that he wants to do now to serve the world. I'm so happy we met, because I can't wait to see how that's going to go after listening to all the stuff that you've done and for those of you that are listening and might not be able to hear it in the inflection of Lynn's voice, for those of us that are watching you, I mean, you're so unassuming about, and then I did this and bit by bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, you are like the epitome of inclusion that I'm on stages around the world trying to teach people about this. And it is just such a core value of yours. It's magnificent to see how this has played out.
All I can say about that is that I have been given more than I have ever given out.
Lynn, you were an inclusion rock star before inclusion became cool. Like you were a trendsetter in this world. And you know what? It all comes from, as Kristen said, that value of recognizing the humanity in everyone and everyone's right to have joy and peace and safety and goodness in their world.
Fun.
And
we
fun,
all
yeah.
and fun.
We forget about that. The world is a very heavy place, and thank you for reminding us that talk about bringing smiles. If you can bring a little bit of fun and joy into someone's life, there's really nothing better than that.
And when you have many people that you can share it with, we have really dear friends that have been our friends. Well, the ones that are in Southampton, and Peggy now has Alzheimer's, but we have such a history together, and she remembers the past that we when we're together and we're having dinner, we talk about all the stories that she remembers, and we relive them. We've traveled together. We've done crazy things together. We raised our kids together, and she remembers all those things. So we just do them again. And my husband has such an assortment of old movies that then we can watch an old movie and we can have the best of times. So even in severe medical conditions, there are ways to break through if all you're trying to do is have a little joy, a little fun, a little remembering. There are ways to do it. And that's really what makes all of us resilient, right? It's the building up of each other, the building up of the body, building up of the community. We're in it together, so why not do it together?
That's the other word I keep hearing with you, Lynn, is community. And you've really solidified for all of us listening. Community is at the heart of everything. And it's funny because now people are trying to build, communities online, and I need to feel a part of something. We have these communities that we live in. And when we just look, like you're saying, across the street, next door, how can we build that? And I'm with you. I firmly believe that that's where I got my foundation in being resilient, because life is hard. But I grew up in a tight community, wasn't huge, nobody famous, no bazillionaires, just some good people that all had the same values, gave me that nice foundation to be able to take off and soar and then do it where I'm at now. So this has been tremendous. I want to shift gears because this has been like, I mean, you were like a master class in so many things here today. And now we want to do our fun little part at the end of the episode here, where we really we started doing this for folks that just are in that stuck mode and gotta rapid fire get out of, real quick. What kind of reset can they do real quick to reset their mindset? So we have some fun stuff here, and see if any of this lands. What is one of your go-to songs when you just gotta get out of a mood?
For a lot of reasons, not just for getting out of a mood, but for a lot of reasons. My tears are going to betray what you just asked. You asked to get you out of it, right? But it also puts me into it, and it would be Seasons of Love.
Oh,
that's a beautiful song. Yeah, and you've experienced them and shared them with so many people. So
525,600 minutes.
I love that song. And I mean,
I love that song too.
Talk about inclusion. It came from Rent. You didn't get more inclusive than what that
But my daughter played Mimi.
No, she didn't.
She did on Broadway.
Oh, my gosh.
And she did it for years on the London stage and also in Toronto.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
Close to her. No wonder you love that song. Okay,
but I love it. I love it because I learned it from her. Right?
Yeah, but the meaning transcends.
And because her whole experience in that show broadened our minds to include. I mean, when you come to my table at a holiday, besides all the different color skins there, my daughter-in-law to be is Jewish, Russian Jewish, and Pakistani. And my daughter Kristen, who is the actor, she always has friends that come and join us, and they're gay and trans. And my daughter Kathleen, her memorial to her son Jake was to become his nurse. So she changed careers and she's now a nurse practitioner. And she often has nurse friends who have nowhere to go, so they're at the table. I mean, it just that song, it says it all. But the thing that really is also sad about that song is that we sung it at the memorial of the person who gave us that first $6,000. And we put on our playground a buddy bench in her name. And a buddy bench is when a child doesn't have anyone to play with. They sit on the bench so that somebody knows that they're looking for a buddy.
Oh, that's so sweet.
One of my most favorite things in this whole entire world is a buddy bench.
That's so sweet. Oh my God.
And that all the kids are in tune to that. That's what I love about it, that someone is willing to ask for help, and that kids are running literally to be that helper.
Right.
Beautiful.
Right. So that song means a lot.
Oh my gosh.
Too. Now, this is when we try to get people to think about something that made them laugh. So is there a point that you can go back to in your mind that just made you laugh so much you almost cried?
Well, yes, it made me laugh so much, and 4 others laughed so much that we were all crying. First with laughter, for absolute sure. It was the most fun thing I can ever, well, maybe not ever, but it was the most fun thing that I have at the moment in you asking me the question. Okay, this is what jumped into my mind. My very dear friend of many, many years was diagnosed about 17 years ago with cancer. And when she was diagnosed, I said to her, Marge, what do you want? What do you need? She said, I need to laugh. And I said, okay, we're coming and we're going to laugh. And I hung up the phone and I thought, oh my God, I can pray, I can hug, I can hold. What in God's name could I possibly do to make her laugh? It was such a burden. I didn't know what to do. And then I did know what to do. And I called the other 4 people that I knew would do this with me. Well, 3 others that would do this with me. And I said, she loves ABBA. Let's get jumpsuits.
No.
Yes. So we got crazy red jumpsuits and microphones and a great big boom box, and then we bought a costume of a queen.
Funny.
And I had to call her neighbor and say, could we get dressed at your house, because we were coming from all different directions. So we went into this neighbor's house who we didn't know. And here's these crazy ladies that are all putting on these crazy red, oh my God, you should have seen them, with the big bell bottoms and the big bell arms. And one of the 4 of us is real teeny tiny, and the rest of us are like 5'7". So I bought them to fit the 5'7" people. And we were putting rubber bands on her legs to pull the bell up so that we didn't lose the bell. And then, and then we put, and all this is unbeknownst to the person we're trying to make laugh. So we're now going over to her house with the boom box. And it's booming. Dancing Queen is booming through the neighborhood, and we're banging on the door, and we've got our jumpsuits and our microphones. And honest to God, it was the whole neighborhood was out laughing. And she got to the door. She came to the door, and she just couldn't stop laughing. And then we dressed her in a queen's outfit, and the night continued. It was
I love it.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. That's incredible. Okay.
That is so fantastic.
Real quick, first of all, the last question is, when did you feel like a rock star? When did you have a rock star moment? I think you just told us.
I think that was it.
I think that was it. That was your rock star moment.
That was a twofer.
Yeah, we got a twofer. Lynn, this has been such a delightful conversation. Is there a place where people can reach out to you? I know it's Build Jake's Place. Is that the place where people can contribute? And
sure. Yeah, buildjakesplace.org. That's our website. Absolutely. I'm easy to get to as well. Sometimes it's hard to hear the words, the letters, but I'm L Cummings at lcdc.us.
Okay, we will put that in our show notes and make sure people can get hold of you. And we're going to turn this back over to my buddy Kristen, who remembers all the things that I don't remember.
This has been, like I said, this is a masterclass in inclusion, and then some, and a hilarious ending to beat, because I'm telling you, I'm going to put Dancing Queen on this afternoon and crack up.
You'll never hear it. Phenomenal. You'll never hear it the same way again.
No. Now I have a whole visual to go with it that is going to make me crack up. This has been such a great time. Thank you so much, Lynn, for being here with us. And for those of you, if you possibly still need a mindset reset and more resources after this episode to live brilliantly resilient, just go to brilliantlyresilient.net. The pop-up will come, put your email in, and every week we will send you a bit of brilliance. Bit by bit by bit, you'll be living brilliantly resilient. We'll see you next time.
Bye,
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thanks for tuning in to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Join our Facebook group and follow us on YouTube to be inspired with tools to reset, rise, and reveal your brilliance.